Hello and welcome to a nice stretchy yoga class. Today we'll do a bit of yin stretching, holding for not too long at a time, but just slowly starting to build things up. Supplies you'll need. I like to have blankies handy. You may wish to have a block or something if you want to prop up a knee on it or something like that. Whatever you got handy, it doesn't hurt to have a bit of supplies. Nothing is a need to have really, but it is nice to have, especially if there is a bit of tenderness in joints. It's nice for your stretchy classes to have the ability to support on something. If you don't have a block, maybe a couch cushion or something like that. Okay, so let's get started in a nice centering posture. So whatever that is for you, maybe it's Balasana, child's pose, or some other comfortable position, whatever position you choose. Take a moment to get settled in and then close the eyes. Maybe even a couple deep breaths. And on each exhale, melting and sinking, just a little bit more feeling grounded. And especially thinking about the spaces where your body connects with the earth. If you're in child's pose, it's nice to each and every time feel that space between the eyes or the forehead, wherever that part of you makes contact with the earth. Taking a moment just to notice it. And taking the next few moments to set an intention for your practice. Picking one of the many benefits of yoga that you'd like to instill in your practice today. And taking a few slow, deep breaths through the nose. Taking as long as you need to finish all 3 deep breaths. And when you're ready, make your way all the way up and back to a downward facing dog. So again, take your time. If you're not there yet, that is okay. Maybe walking it out. Maybe shifting the hips from side to side. Downward facing dog is a really nice posture to make just little gentle organic movements. Nice and gentle though. I sometimes get that feeling like, oh, that stretch feels really nice if I just push a little bit harder. But try to resist that temptation if that weird temptation occurs to you as well. And then when you're ready, lowering through hands and knees and making your way all the way to seated. We'll begin with butterfly pose. So bringing the soles of the feet together. Beautiful thing about having a home practice, you can face whatever direction you want. And getting yourself nice and comfortable. Maybe you'd like to support one knee or both knees with a blanket or something like that. I'm just going to grab a little timer here. It's the nice one. It's the blue one. So in your butterfly posture, we'll begin. If you have the mobility to reach forward, go ahead and do so. If that's too much, then keep the hands behind you. So there's no need to launch into it. Just finding that space that feels like a gentle stretch. And this is one of the pillars of yin yoga and why it works so effectively to create flexibility in the body. When we find our edge, but we don't push past it, we respect that boundary, that edge, it not only lets your body know that you're respecting it. That sounds a little bit silly, but stretching is, and yoga is a little bit of a trust exercise with your own body. I almost like to think of my body as almost a separate being altogether than my mind. The reason why is, you know how we have, most of our bodily functions are unconscious, or subconscious rather. So things like our blood pressure and our digestion, we don't have to think about that consciously. Okay, do that. Also, things that happen to our body like ulcers if we're too stressed. You know, we don't want our body to react in a negative way to what we're doing to it, but it does. So for that reason, you can call it hooey if you want to. It's just a kind of a fact. My body sometimes reacts in ways I don't wish it to. So I feel like my yoga practice is a trust building exercise. And when I respect my body, when I recognize its limitations, because my body's limitations are far more realistic than my mind's limitations. It's quite extraordinary, the flexibility my mind thinks my body should have. But when I recognize that my body is only here, and I respect that, it in turn trusts me and doesn't throw back strained muscles and such. Let's come on out. We're already done that one. The next one, let's just do an in-between posture. So we'll not hold this next one as long, but with the legs forward in Dandasana staff pose. My blankets here. It's reverse plank. So leaning back onto the hands. And if you're feeling ambitious, you can lift the hips up high to the sky. I like to, in my yin practice, keep my hips lowered. That's completely your decision. Either way, lifting the heart up high to the sky. And if you lift it high enough, it'll get to the point where your neck feels weird holding your head neutral. When you get to that point, gently begin to lower your head back. Of course, assuming you have no neck issues. If you do, then you need to protect yourself. Couple deep breaths here. And then slowly coming all the way back up. Preparing for straddle. So we step the feet as wide apart as they go. It's a little bit tricky if you have a B mat like I do. So I like to have something a little bit slippery beneath my legs and straddle so that my legs can move. And when you're ready, the feet go as far apart as available today. Also, it's for the coldness. My floor's cold. So if it's a struggle to stay upright, keep your hands behind you, lifting. If you have a little bit of extra mobility, then you can start to walk the hands forward until you feel a gentle stretch. You feel your edge, so not pushing past it, okay? Especially in a really elusive stretch like this one. We talked about in our last stretching class in this yoga challenge how fire log pose, or it's called square in yin yoga, it's a posture that tends to open up fairly quickly in comparison to poses like this one. This one does take some time. It just does. So some muscles tend to just naturally open up quicker than others. And again, we just respect that. Okay, this is where we are today. Sounds good? So for this one, I'm going to stop talking for the remainder. And what I recommend doing is just soften. Soften in those spaces. Instead of resisting the stretch, allow the stretch and breathe deep. And slowly start to come on out, moving slowly, slowly. Even if you are very flexible, take your time, moving just 1 millimeter at a time. And returning to Dandasana, staff pose, maybe a couple little knee taps to shake it out. The next posture is shoelaces. So for this one, we start out. Let's have those legs straight forward. Take the right leg and bring it over top of the left, stacking knee over knee. If that's enough of a stretch for you, you can stay there. This one, it's beneficial to be up on a garden mat or a blanket or something, as long as both hips, both sit bones are equal, not lopsided, because we really want to, as soon as we can, bring that bottom leg underneath. Most of us can't do that right from the get-go, though. It takes some time. So if you find that this isn't working, come on out and try sitting up on a cushion or something. Wherever you're at, though, it's all good. Once you find your space, then closing the eyes, melting into it, and slowing down the breathing. The last class that we did was core and glutes. So if you're thinking, wow, I'm a little more tight here than I usually am, it could be because you just did the glutes and core strengthening video yesterday, or maybe even earlier today, or maybe it was a few days ago. Either way, you might be feeling this more so than you usually would if that was your last class. If you're not feeling the stretch here, there's a couple things you can do. And I like doing this. It's kind of fun. You can walk the hands forward to feel a greater stretch. Or what I've liked to do recently is head back. It's also a greater stretch in a different direction. It's really kind of interesting. So wherever you're at, softening into those spaces. To come out, we move super duper slow. Take your time. Reversing course. Maybe that bottom leg comes out first and the top. Couple little knee taps. And wouldn't you know, there's a second side. So this time we take the left leg on top, and same thing again. You might find, and it's kind of interesting, that one side cooperates better than the other. So if you're like, well, wait a sec, why is this not working as easily? Or you might find, hey, this side's a lot easier. Sometimes the second side works better because it's already stretched out just a little bit from the previous side. Wherever you're at, settling in. The goal is to not fidget. This is where Carla's still working on things. I'm a total fidgeter, so I'm going to close my eyes, soften into the spaces that feel the stretch. And instead of thinking, don't fidget, I'm going to think stillness. Slow, deep breathing. That's another trick to find flexibility a little bit quicker. Slow, deep breathing through the nose, allowing those muscles to lengthen. Last few moments, just taking a deep inhale and an exhale. And moving nice and slow. Slow, 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 reversing course. Even if you're flexible, just taking your time, maybe a couple little knee taps. And then heading into square pose. So for this one, we bend the left leg and right leg moves on top. So a lot of us at first were kind of like this. And if that's too much, you can even lean back and sort of switch it up to cross the ankle over the knee, and you might be here. And we might just stay here. If you're a bit more flexible, you can start to stack lower limb over lower limb, or lower leg rather. And we don't want to have them pulled in. We want the legs parallel, so one right on top of the other. So scooching that bottom leg until your shin bone is parallel to the top edge of your mat. Other leg on top, same thing again. Soften, melt, maybe a block or something, just to support the knees if needed. Otherwise, here we go. This is where I like to have my blankies, just for moral support. Softening and melting. A dear friend of mine said that she once said, the hips are the junk drawer of life. I just kind of laughed because it's pretty funny. A lot of things we tend to store in our hips. And like one of my teachers in class one day, he said, you know, it's funny, anytime I do hip opening stretches like this, I get flashbacks to grade 6 dodgeball. And he said, I have no idea why. What does that have to do with anything? But we do tend to store memories and things get stuffed into that junk drawer of the hips. So do be aware of that. If you have flashbacks to grade 6 dodgeball and they were great times, awesome. If there's not so super memories that pop up, just try to breathe through them. I had another teacher who also had memories pop up, but they were very not good ones. So even though she had the flexibility, she shied away from feeling that full stretch, and you can too. So when we say find your edge. It might mean the stretch edge. It might mean emotionally find your edge. So be respectful of both and then soften into it. And just like all of our other stretches, moving like a sloth. Take your time, take your time, take your time. Unfolding, unraveling, reversing course. Taking a second here. Between the sides, heading back into that reverse plank again, just to counter stretch a little bit. So leaning back onto the hands and then straightening through the arms, lifting the heart up to the sky. Couple deep breaths. And release. Heading into that second side, Agni Sthambhasana or square pose, where left leg on top of right. And when you're ready, closing your eyes, melting into it, and we begin. And slowly start to come out. You know, they say I watched pot never boils. I think that might be true because I watched that timer. It seemed to take a lot longer. So let's unravel, unfold, couple little knee taps, and we're done. That's it. Just a little bit of a stretch after our glutes and core class of last time. So hopefully that feels a little bit better. We'll prepare for a little Shavasana. So taking all the time you need to get set up, laying back, maybe something beneath the knees if you feel your back needs some support in Shavasana. And when you're ready, settling in, your back feels okay today, then extending the legs and the arms along your sides, palms facing up, and closing the eyes. Softening everything, but especially through the neck and the shoulders and all the way down the arms. Letting the fingers softly curl. Softening through the face. Softening around the eyes. And even the muscle between the eyes. Just letting it all go. And if you'd like to stay a little longer, feel free to do so. Otherwise, wiggling fingers and toes. And gently roll your head from side to side. Then reaching your arms above head on the floor. Give yourself a big stretch. Feeling totally refreshed. And bending your knees one at a time. And roll over to the right side. Pausing there for a few moments. Allowing your body that space and time to adjust. And when you feel ready, start to press yourself all the way up to a comfortable seated position, taking all the time you need. But when you arrive, palms facing up on the knees, inhale, sitting up tall, and exhale, softly close the eyes. Taking those final moments to reconnect with your intention for your practice today. Knowing you're one step closer. And taking another moment for someone who might need a little extra thought today. And slowly open the eyes. Namaste, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. And just like any other fairly big stretching class, it's really good to have some extra water today. Just let everything all flush out. And I will see you next time. Have a really good rest of your day, everyone.